recording on this computer. So we're going to run through some challenges just to kind of show you. These are specific to working with arrays or strings. The first thing I just kind of want to mention is that I saw when reviewing some people's submissions, I saw people naming from like a naming convention, naming a variable the same name as their function. So they would say like function some name or like does something, some input, and then they would declare a variable called some name and then assign it to, and they're declaring the same function name as the same variable name. You don't want to redeclare, you want to keep names separate. So a function name should not be the same name as a variable and vice versa. Just from like a naming convention. Just want to throw that out there. I know keeping track of names and what you should name things. Just want to make everyone kind of aware of that. Don't declare the same name for a function as you do a variable, and vice versa. Don't declare a variable name the same name as you declare a function. Don't do that. All right. So I know someone said they wanted to run through alphabet code. So we'll go ahead and run through that one right now. And then we're going to run through remove zeros, sum of negatives, and wait, is this the one we wanted? Yeah, sum of the negatives, and then my colleagues, which is dealing with arrays as well. So this first one, write a method that takes an uppercase letter of the alphabet as a string and returns the integer corresponding to its place in the alphabet. Now there's multiple ways to do this. As who created the alphabet as an object initially?
It was me. Me, Nick.
Nick, okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and do it your way. Actually, let me see something. Teacher. I'm just gonna pull up yours just so I can copy some codes because I don't want to write all that.
I actually just reset it.
Oh, okay, disregard.
Sorry.
So if I did like,
I did it the same way. If you want to pull up mine, Tom.
Who's that?
This is Francisco.
Francisco, awesome.
Yeah. I did a bunch of if-else statement or else if.
Cool. All right. I'm just gonna copy some things over. Oh, you did an else if statement. Okay. So I'm just gonna do it as an object. So alpha object. So is this kind of what you did, Nick, initially?
Yes, and then each key, or the key for it was the alphabet, and then the values were the actual numbers.
So A corresponds to 0, and then we can just.
Well, I did it to 1 because it started at 1 in the,
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So I won't do the entire alphabet. I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So A, B, C, D, E, F. So we have an alphabet object corresponding to the entire alphabet. And well, let me see something. And you are trying to get the value at that object. So if you have the letter, you would loop through an object. Is that correct? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
No, so outside of the function, I would pass in the letter. So like, let's say A, right? I would pass in A, and then I was trying to get it so that way it took the variable that you passed in as the key to get the value.
Okay. So if we wanted to grab the value, so where would you pass in the letter into the object?
So outside of the function, I had text that, let alpha letter or something like that, or you can call it letter, whatever, equals A.
A.
Yep. And then I would call the function
Oh, okay.
and then pass in the A variable, or that variable rather.
So alpha letter, and let's just console log alpha letter and run this. Okay.
Or wouldn't it be letter since that's the parameter name?
Thank you. So if I run that, I get down here the letter A and undefined because the function isn't actually returning any value. That's why undefined. If you ever just get like undefined, that means whatever code is executed didn't return anything unless it was explicitly returned an undefined value or data type. So, and you would want, so when you were.
So from here, once it passed in the variable, then I was trying to do research, but I couldn't figure it out. How do you actually call the key of that object to get the value?
Okay. So we can literally just kind of like arrays. We can do alpha object and pass in, we can do dot letter. Let's see if this works. So if I do console log alpha object dot letter and run that, I get undefined. And that's why dot notation, I try to stay away from it because you can't do dot followed by a variable. That's why you use bracket notation. So you can alpha object, I'm calling the alpha object, and the value at this key. So if I run that, I get 1.
Okay, that's what it was then. I kept doing dot notation and it not work. It didn't work.
Yep. So that's why when in doubt, I always use bracket notation because you can pass in variables.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I can return this right there. I can run that. I get 1. I can say if I do B, run that, I get 2. And if I do E, I get 5. And if I run the specs, it says test name 2. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Because it doesn't have the full alphabet in there. Yep.
So there's this way to do it. You can just do that, or you can let like string alphabet and just do a string of what's going on. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So is that 26? So I can console log. So what was one of the methods that we learned tonight that works on strings as well as arrays in which I'm able to find the index of a specific value?
Is it an index of?
Index of.
Yep. So I can say letter. So right now I have this as all lowercase. I can run, what am I trying to do? I can do string. So the first thing I want to do is uppercase. I don't want to rewrite that entire thing. So I can do string alphabet to uppercase. So if I console log that, I just want to see what this looks like. So I have an uppercase alphabet right here. And now I can do dot index of letter. And so I get E is 4. Let's try A. A is 0, but I don't want 0. I want 1. So I can do index of +1. I can run that. All right. So I can probably just return this, and I can pass the test specs. And you can also, I know it says takes in an uppercase, so some of the parameters or the requirements, it says it takes in an uppercase letter. What if I took in a lowercase letter? Oh, it still works. Okay. Does it work? Yeah.
I mean, it should, because I thought it was like if it were the triple equal sign, then it's gonna. Oh well.
Yeah. All right. I
Yeah.
guess it still works.
Well, isn't it because it's converting it to uppercase no matter what?
So the string to uppercase does, but the letter, I have to look into that, why that does that. So letter is lowercase. Yeah, maybe it already, go
I
ahead.
think it's because the tests have their own inputs. So like the tests are always using
Oh,
uppercase
yeah.
letters.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. Thank you, Gus. But for example, if the letter, if it took in lowercase letters as well, we can let upper letter equal letter dot to uppercase and pass in the upper letter into here. So regardless if it ran, it would still work. Not irrespective of whatever's actually passed in. We just convert everything to uppercase and then run it like that. So anybody have any questions? I'm gonna submit that. If you did a bunch of if statements, I would go back and try to refactor that, just because you can write it in a few lines of code versus like 26 times 3. So 70, at least 77, 78 lines of code. All right. So we have that one. So now we have removed zeros. Write a function that returns all the zeros removed from it. We're going removed. So we can do a couple of things here. Write a function. We can do a simple for loop. So like for let I equal 0, I is less than. What do we want to loop through? So we have a number. We can't call the length of a number. So we can say let string number equal number. I got to convert this to a string. And now I can loop through it for the length of the string. And I plus plus. And now I just want to console log the value at that index I. So I'm starting at the very first index of the string. I'm looping through it continuously to increment the index until I, the index, is less than that string length. So this ensures I go through the entire length of the string. I don't go over I don't try to find the index, or I don't continue on after the length of the string. So if I run through that and I click run, I get 506800119. Now I can say like let answer equals, I'm just going to say as an empty string, I'm just going to make answer an empty string right now. And inside of this for loop, I can do some control flow, some if else statements, or maybe just an if statement. I can say if the value at that index does not equal a 0, so it should be a string because this is a string now. So if it doesn't equal a string, I can answer plus equals, which is like continuously adding on to this specific answer. So it's the same thing as, so I do equals the answer plus that value. If it loops all the way through it, I can console log the answer. So loops through it. If this value right here does not equal a 0, I'm adding it to this answer variable. So it's skipping over. So if it does equal, if this does equal 0, it just skips over this if statement and just comes back up and repeats the loop. So if I run it, oh, not the test, if I just run that, I get 5, 6, 8 there. And now let's return this answer. Return answer. Because every function needs to return it. So if I run it, I get this value. That looks right. All the values are removed. So let's run this test spec. I'm still failing them. It says expected 11 in a string to be 11 number. Okay, so it looks like they are all, so I'm returning a string when I expect a number. So I can actually just return this answer. I can either make it into a number by just adding a plus sign, or I can encapsulate it with a number and actually, in fact, make it a number. And run those test specs, and they should pass. What questions do you have about remove zeros? I think the function I have here and in the test specs, it's ES, but my initial function over here was just zeros without an E at it. So if you don't pass the test specs, just make sure these functions are called the same.
Are you guys against us using methods that you haven't showed us?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. So there's another way. So to solve this, I was just having fun since we just learned the for each method. I converted it into an array. So I said let array of numbers. Just for fun, I'm grabbing the number. I'm converting it to a string. And now if I console log the array of numbers and I run that, it's a string. Now I actually want to split that and turn it into an array and split it like that. Whoops. If I run that, so I have an array of numbers now, or an array of string numbers. Now, just what we learned today, we can kind of do the same thing. Let answer equals empty string. And I can use the array of numbers dot for each. And I can say, grab the element at the value at each index. I can say if element does not equal a string of 0, answer equals, I can do a plus equals, it's the same thing as doing, so and answer equals answer plus element is the same thing as answer plus equals element. And now I can return answer, and I'm going to console log it as well and run that. And again, I get this just the string. I can convert it to a number by doing that. And I pass the test specs. Just kind of for fun, just splitting it into an array, because I can use array, the for each method. Does anybody have any questions? And if you have another way to do it, if you do a bunch of chaining together, or if you use regex, which we don't really get into because it's kind of a pain and it's just pattern matching. It's not necessarily coding ability, but you can also do that.
Hey, Tom, I noticed that you're using ELEM instead of full element when you use that. That's one of the things that I'm struggling with is the exact syntax when I'm writing some of my code. is there certain words that makes a difference on as it does with others?
No, so when I'm doing element, that's just, so this is literally just this part right here. This is literally just this whole aspect is literally just a function. So I can literally write it like this as well, I think. Function element. And if I run that, it does the same thing. So I'm literally just creating another function. It's called an anonymous function because it doesn't have a name to it. And I'm passing in a parameter called element, which is going to represent, which is like a named variable for each value in this array. And now so it's literally just writing like another function where I'm creating a parameter. I'm passing an argument into this function. And now I can use element as a named variable for each value that I pass into it.
Got it. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. And the way it's written before, it's just arrow functions. It's kind of like the new way to do it, but it's exactly the same as doing this. So if I do that, and fat arrow function still runs. And then if you're only passing one element or one argument, or if you only have one parameter in your arrow function, you don't need parentheses around it. But if you have more than one, so if I wanted to pass in the index as well, we'll have to have parentheses around it. But everything still runs. What other questions? All right, I'm going to submit that. All right. All right. Here's another sum of the negatives. This covers arrays and loops. So write a method that takes in an array of integers and returns the sum of only the negative integers in the array. So learning what we did today, we can learn about, we have this array. I'm going to grab here. What the hell is that? It's an example input. Should be -10. So I've got this array. What built-in method can I use? I can use a for loop. I can go through iteration and loop through the array using a for loop. But using a built-in method that we just learned, what's another way I can iterate through an array?
For each.
Yep. So I can say num array dot for each element in the array. I can console log the element. So if I run that, I get 3, -1, -9, 2. Now again, using some control flow, I can do if element is less than 0 because we only want the negative numbers. Looks like I'm going to probably have to declare a new variable called answer, or like let sum of I don't like sum of negatives. I can do neg sum. Initially it's 0 because if there aren't any, it's going to return 0. I can say neg sum plus equals element. And at the very bottom, return negative sum. If I can console log that, neg sum, and run that, I get -10 for that one. And let's just run the test specs. And there we go, I passed the test specs. You can easily use a for loop So in place of all of this, I can do for let I equals 0. I is less than num array dot length, and I plus plus. And it looks like this should return the same. If I run that, element is not defined. So I need if num array, the value at this specific index is less than 0, add that, and it should return the same. So that you can do either or, but just want to get used to just these built-in methods. There we go, we got submitted. Does anybody have any questions about this one? All right, last one. So you're given an input. Your given input is a nested array of colleagues. Within the nested array, there are your colleagues' titles and a characteristic of them. So write a function that console logs the colleague's name, title, and the characteristic, and then returns true. So the function just returns true. And we just want to console log Stacy is the IT person and is super smart. Jim is the salesperson and is outgoing. Jenny is the manager and is very empathetic. And Corey is the software engineer and is very funny. So we have this colleague data, which is an array of arrays of arrays. So it's a really big nested array. So do you want to use a for each, or we'll first use a for loop and then we'll do a for each just to kind of show you what they both look like. So I can do for let I equals 0. I is less than colleague data, colleagues dot length. And then after each time it loops through, I increment the index by 1. So I'm just going to console log the value at the first index. So where is it? There we go. All right, so if I run this one doesn't have test specs because it just returns true every time. That's the output. So it returns an array of an array. So now I have to like access Stacy. So how do I access just the names? So again, let's like break down this complex problem into individual parts. So I need to extract Stacy, IT person, and super smart from each index. So here's index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. So colleagues at I is an array. How do I?
The beginning of each one, so it'd be like I and then a 0.
All right, let's try that. So right now I'm just going to try to access. You're correct. Right now I'm just going to try to access. Just print the names of each person. So that's the first thing I just want to try to do to see if that's possible. So if I run that again, I get Stacy, Jim, Jenny, and Corey. Cool. Now I'm going to go up. So I've got that first index right here, and I'm grabbing the value index 0 of this array, which is Stacy. That's what's going on in line 4. But now if I wanted to grab, so this is at the value at index 0, I want to grab the value at index 1. So I'm going to console log that. And if I grab the value at index 1, so I'm going to console or comment that out. So I have the IT person and super smart, which is another array. So it's like an array of an array of an array. So I want to just try to get the IT person printed out. So this value right here represents this right here, which is in another array. So now if I just want to print the IT person, I can grab the index, the value index 0, like right here. So index 0. And if I run that, I get the IT person. If I wanted to grab the other value, which is the characteristic, I can grab the value index 1. So with all these console logs, if I print it, I have Stacy, IT, super smart, Jim, sales, outgoing. Great, I've grabbed all the values that I need. Now I can just console log. I'm just gonna grab this down here to reference. And I'm gonna use string interpolation for this. This is where I'm able to add variables and within a string. So I have that. So instead of hard coding the name Stacy, I want to add, get rid of that. Oh, no, that's what I wanted. This is the value of Stacy, so I can grab that and do $, open brackets, closing brackets, and I'm able to get that value. What's it saying? Unexpected identifier. Oh, like that. So if I just run that right now, so I'm going to get rid of line 3 because I'm using that right here. If I run that, it says IT person. Stacy is the IT person, is super smart. Jim is the IT person, is super smart. So we want to replace this with the job title, and then also want to replace the characteristic. So this is the characteristic right there, and that loops through it and then just returns true. So if I run that, I got Stacy's the IT person and is super smart. Jim is the salesperson and is super outgoing. Jenny is the manager and is very empathetic. Corey is the software engineer and is very funny. Does anybody have any questions about how I accessed the indexes of a nested array?
For the since you're using string interpolation, you have to use those like backticks, right, at the beginning of the string?
Yep, beginning and end of the string, you need the backticks. I can do the same. Does anybody else have any questions? What other questions you have?
Yeah, I saw you return true. How come it's true?
That's just the name of that's just what we kind of wanted the function to return.
Okay.
That's it. The main purpose of this is grabbing specific values from index or nested arrays. So we can do this whole thing again using colleagues dot for each and grab the elements. At that, and we can actually move that up here. And we can grab right there. Just replace all that with element. It should return the same. All right. And that is it for going through arrays and covering some challenges for this evening. Does anybody have any questions about arrays, built-in methods? I implore you, or yeah, encourage you to go and research some other built-in methods. There's a bunch of them out there. You can just say like JavaScript array built in functions, and you'll get a list of them like right here. Find index, for each, from, includes is a good one. Is array returns a Boolean value of if an array is an array or not. So with that, I'm gonna